Tune in to Twin Tier Sunday. Sarah Black from the Sexual Assault Resource Center joins us. She's going to explain a little bit about how sexual assault is affecting people in our community and ways, if you need help, where you can go and how to get it. We'll see you then.
You're watching Twin Tier Sunday with Jennifer Sheahen.
Welcome to Twin Tier Sunday. I'm your host, Jennifer Sheahen. Today we are touching on a topic that is not easy to talk about, but is something that affects an American every 2 minutes: sexual assault. But because so many are hurt by acts like it, it is why getting the word out and understanding the topic is so important. Take a look.
So now the voice is inside her head, telling her she should be better off dead.
Unfortunately, sexual violence can come in many forms: rape, child abuse, stalking, and many other acts. A staggering 1 of every 6 American women has been a victim of attempted or completed rape in her lifetime.
I was.
And surprisingly, 60% of sexual assaults are not reported to the police.
I have the right to be protected. I have the right to be free. I have the right to be free.
In turn, that means 97% of rapists will never spend a day in jail. And even after the assault happens, the emotions and struggles the victim faces on the recovery journey can be extremely difficult. Victims of sexual assaults are 3 times more likely to suffer from depression, 26 times more likely to abuse drugs, and 4 times more likely to contemplate suicide. And because the effects of sexual assault can change your life, it's important to remember a few key things to stay safe. Trust your gut. Be true to yourself. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. Take control of your online life, thinking twice before you share personal information. Make others earn your trust. If you see something, say something. If a situation seems questionable, speak up and alert others around you about it. And if you like to go out and party every now and then, party smart. Guard your drink and be a good friend, watching out for each other.
You just learned a little bit about how sexual assault is affecting Americans across the country. Now Sarah Black joins us. She is the Community Affairs Coordinator at the Sexual Assault Resource Center in Corning, New York. Why don't you tell me a little bit about the center and what services they provide?
Sure. We're a 24-hour center. We have a hotline that people can call at any hour of the day if they've been assaulted or they have questions about something that may have happened to them or a loved one. And we serve 3 counties, so it's not just here in Steuben, it's Steuben, Schuyler, and Chemung. Though our offices are in Corning. And we've been around since 1996, actually. We were formerly the Rape Crisis of the Southern Tier. And last spring we changed our name because we felt it more encompasses the services that we offer. We do counseling, one-on-one counseling, crisis intervention. We accompany victims to the hospital if they've been assaulted. We go to police stations with people who need to make a statement about what happened to them. And everything's free and confidential. All the services that we offer, from the education programs to the counseling, everything is completely free and confidential.
Now, what is a one-on-one counseling like, or how does a person even get to that point that they need that?
What they would do is call the hotline, the 888-810-0093, and get in touch with whichever counselor is on call, and they would be able to set up a time to meet with a primary counselor based on what county they live in.
Now, what is the number one service that you offer, or what do people most likely go to you for?
Most people come to us when they need some counseling following an assault. We offer other services, like I mentioned, the education, the community outreach, but direct services is what we do most of.
That is wonderful. Now, what I was reading earlier is that 63% of sexual assaults are never actually reported to the police. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is?
We find that people may not know that it's a crime. A lot of what is considered sexual assault is not just applicable to the act of rape, but it could be sexual harassment, it could be stalking. And people don't think it's a crime always. They don't know what it is. And some people, it becomes such a part of their lifestyle that they're so used to it, they don't do anything about it. But there's such a stigma attached to sexual assault. You know, there's so much victim blaming, and people who've been assaulted are made to feel so much shame, which is kind of crazy because it's a crime that's been perpetrated against them. They haven't done anything that that means that they deserve what happened to them.
That is a really difficult situation for someone that is going through that. How can you change that, or how do you make them realize it is happening to you, and this is what you can do, and this is how we can help?
Well, we do it by outreach. We're out in the community a lot, at health fairs, at the Strong Kids, Safe Kids events that you see over the summer. We do a lot of education in classrooms with high schoolers and with college students. We just try to get out there because the more we can let people know what sexual assault is, the more they're more likely to figure out that that's what happened to them, and hopefully reach out for help.
How many people does your center help each year?
I have numbers from 2013. We saw probably, I want to say, around 1,200 people. We had almost 700 calls that came into the hotline that were because somebody had experienced an assault. And that is in the 3 counties, 24 hours a day that we're getting calls. And our counselors among the 3 counties opened right around 120 new cases. So those were brand new cases. Those don't include the cases that continued from 2012 or the sort of the ongoing clients that they have. And we had about 500 in-person counseling sessions. So, yeah.
That's
so
great.
it's,
See?
yeah, it's
What
a
counties
lot.
do you draw most from, or what county do you draw most from?
I would say we probably have the most clients in Chemung. You know, it's a more populated area, even though I think Steuben County is a larger county. But I would say mostly Chemung. Steuben is second, and then probably Schuyler.
Okay, wonderful. Well, right after the break, we're going to learn more about sexual assault, what you can do to prevent it, and what they teach to kids and students and even just adults in the community about how they can take charge of themselves when a sexual assault hits them. And we'll see you right after the break.
Twin Tier Sunday will return in a moment.
Welcome back. You just learned a little bit about the Sexual Assault Resource Center in Corning. Now we're going to talk about more about who does sexual assault affect, and what type of people does it affect most?
I mean, commonly people associate sexual assault and rape with women, and the majority of the victims are women, and that's mainly who we see. But it does affect everyone. It affects people with disabilities quite often. It affects males. It affects children, unfortunately. So it really varies. It can happen to absolutely anyone.
How often does it affect males in our community? Because I think it's kind of a stereotype that it really does only affect females. But how often does it happen here in our own community that a male comes in and says, "Hey, you know what? This had happened to me"?
We don't have as many males contacting us as we do females. But the national statistic is that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men will experience some form of sexual assault in their lifetime. Most of them that happens by the age of 25 or 30. Younger people are more likely to experience assault because they're more vulnerable because of age or because of sort of knowledge. They're less likely to know that what they're experiencing is unacceptable.
Now, what are the typical types of sexual assault, or what is sexual assault even? Because I think it's such a broad term, but there's so many different little things that go into that definition.
Sexual assault includes any sort of unwanted sexual contact. It can be harassment, it can be unwanted fondling, it can be stalking, dating violence, which you see unfortunately a lot of among people between the ages of 15 and 23. I think that's one of the age ranges in which we see the most assault happen.
Now, what is dating violence?
Dating violence often includes sexual violence, but it can also be emotional abuse, manipulation, coercion into having or participating in sexual acts that the person may not be comfortable with, physical violence, that all that goes into dating violence or intimate partner violence.
Now, do you get a lot of kids under the age of 18 come in to you?
We do. We see, we do serve a lot of adolescents. They're just one of those ages that, you know, nobody wants to think about how likely sexual assault is to occur. So people don't think it will happen to them. And we hope that it doesn't happen to them. But that is a very vulnerable population based on knowledge.
So when you go out into the community and you start teaching kids and adults about sexual assault, how do you introduce that topic to them, and what do you tell them?
We talk to them about the fact that, for the most part, if they are experiencing anything that makes them uncomfortable, there's a good chance that it's assault or at least harassment, and either way it's, you know, unacceptable behavior. So we talk to them about that. We talk with adolescents a lot about consent, about the fact that if you are under the influence of drugs or alcohol, legally you can't consent to a sexual act. So we really focus on that fact, that if you haven't said yes, then you don't have to do anything. I mean, we really try to emphasize the fact that you should get a yes from somebody if you are participating in a sexual relationship with them.
What else do you tell them?
Adolescents in particular?
Yeah.
We talk to them a lot about how to help friends, how to be a good resource for someone. We try to enforce in them the idea that they shouldn't be bystanders, that if they see something that they think is suspect, they should say something. You know, they may have a friend who's experiencing something that they don't think is right. We do get anonymous calls, typically from people who are adolescents, asking about a hypothetical situation. You know, my friend is going through this, what does that mean? Or this happened to me, is it rape?
Now, if you get a call in, do you guys further investigate those calls, or is it something that you just kind of keep track of?
We keep track of. We don't reach out to clients because of privacy issues. They come to us. I mean, that's why we have the 24-hour hotlines. They can call any time of day. That might be a good time for them to get in touch with us. So we don't, unless we have permission from the client, we don't do follow-up calls.
Okay. Now, will you report it to the police if you hear something?
No, that is also up to the client as well. There are certain times that we are mandated to notify the police if somebody calls and tells us that they're thinking of suicide. We will do crisis intervention for suicide, but we will tell them if we think that they're in immediate danger that we have to notify the police. And that goes for anyone, not just adolescents.
Now, what do you tell adults who are kind of have, you know, been through the dating scene, who go out to bars and things like that? What do you tell them and teach them?
Actually, quite a lot of what we teach adolescents. The idea of getting consent is, for a lot of people, still new. I think there are a lot of assumptions that go along with dating relationships, with romantic relationships.
What are some of those assumptions?
I think the assumption that if you have had sexual intimacy with somebody once, then that's just how it is now. But we really emphasize the fact that, no, you need to continue to get a yes. I mean, you shouldn't take for granted what someone is comfortable with. They may want to do something one time, but it doesn't mean that's what they want to do all of the time.
And then if someone, you know, is out at a party, young girl's at a party, you know, she's in high school, she's having a drink and she's approached by a male or starts to feel uncomfortable, or if something, you know, sexually happens and she needs to get away, how do you prevent that if she finds herself in that situation, he or she finds himself in that situation?
Sort of for basic preventative measures, you know, we do encourage people not to go out alone. If people are at bars or parties, we try to tell them, you know, don't drink from the party punch bowl, don't drink from any sort of community punch bowl, I guess. And that's not necessarily because we think the person who experiences sexual assault should have been responsible for themselves and for preventing it. We really think that the blame lies with the perpetrators. But that's just sort of general safety, because you don't know what's in there, and it could be anything. It could be something you're allergic to, but it could also be some sort of date rape drug.
So if they do, you know, if they're drinking and then someone approaches them, how do you tell someone to back off?
That's really hard, I guess. I think that's something that a lot of people have trouble saying. There's that idea, and I think a lot of women in particular, but I think some men as well, experience that some people won't lay off, and you have to say that you're married, or you have to like move a ring to your ring finger to prove it, even if you're not, or even if you're not seeing anybody. So we tell people that no matter what they try to do, no matter how many times they say no, if they choose to fight back, if they start to experience symptoms of freezing because they're scared and their body doesn't know what to do, it's not their fault. I mean, the prevention that we advocate for comes in the idea that we should be teaching people not to rape one another, not how to avoid getting raped.
That's a very good concept, let me tell you.
Yes.
Then, so if this does happen to someone, they're sexually assaulted, how do you help them move on from that? How do you help them recover from that experience?
Yeah, it's tough because everyone's different. People who have experienced sexual assault often experienced post-traumatic stress disorder afterward. So that's where the counseling comes in. We do a lot of referrals because the counseling we offer is non-therapeutic. So if we are working with a client and we feel like they may need, medicine for depression or something to help them sleep because maybe they're having nightmares from PTSD, we will refer them out. We work with mental health counselors and psychiatrists at various hospitals, so we will work to get them the help that's going to be best for them.
So that's really great. Your organization comes from all the way from preventative, educational to recovery, and that's something that I think our community is very welcoming towards and thankful for.
Yeah.
So after the break, we're going to find out how you can get involved with the organization, or if you need help, where you can go to. We'll see you right after the break.
Twin Tier Sunday will return in a moment.
Welcome back. You just learned a little bit about sexual assault, how it affects people in our area, and now I kind of want to talk about where people can go to if something happens to them. Why don't you tell us?
Okay, we have the 24-hour hotline, which is 888-810-0093, and it's a toll-free hotline, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Somebody is always available if somebody has questions or they're in a crisis.
How does that call usually go? Like, if someone's like, what are the questions that are asked, or what are they to expect when they do call?
When they call, the call will be received by a call center, and the person will ask for the client's name and their phone number, and if they're in a safe place, because we like to be able to know if it's a good time for them to talk when someone calls them back. And it's very brief initially. They'll be asked if the call is related to someone who's under 17, because we do like to know if it's related to someone who's a minor or not. And then within 5 to 10 minutes, the client will get a call back from a trained counselor.
That is wonderful. So it's kind of like an initial interview, and then you direct it to someone who has better knowledge on that particular case. Then. Yeah. Now, if somebody doesn't want to call and they feel more safe going to see a person, what can they do?
They still have to call the hotline first to set up a counseling session, but they don't have to do a phone counseling session in order to meet in person. They can call and say, I really want to come in and speak with a counselor, and we will work to set something up with the primary counselor based on what county they're in.
Is there anything else that you would recommend for someone to do?
If somebody has a question about what's happened to them, I mean, an immediate concern is always medical. So we hope that people are comfortable going to their physicians or to their doctors, or if they want to go to the hospital, that's fine as well. People who are admitted to the emergency room in our area should be offered the chance to speak with an advocate, with a counselor, and that's a New York State law actually, that a client who reports to the emergency room with a sexual assault should be offered the chance to speak with somebody.
Okay, I didn't know that. I also was reading that New York State has a special compensation program for victims. I haven't heard about this before. Can you tell me a little bit about what the New York State does offer?
Yeah, the Office of Victim Services is actually one of our funders. And they do offer compensation for people who've experienced sexual assault because it's not inexpensive to go to the hospital and to have a forensic evidence collection kit done, which is a rape kit. It's not cheap, and it's not inexpensive if they choose to take HIV post-exposure prophylaxis, or if they need to get follow-up testing for STIs. Just like any trip to the emergency room, there's a lot that goes into it. So OVS is there to help people be reimbursed if they need to miss time from work, or if they wear a hearing aid and they're attacked and the hearing aid gets lost or damaged, they can apply to be compensated for that as well, that sort of thing.
Now, how much does the state compensate? Is it everything, or is it just kind of like a
It's certain things, and it is a payer of last resort. So as far as medical concerns go, if the person has insurance, it will be billed to their insurance first. But the OVS actually will cover quite a bit more than people think. So
that's good to know too. If you're avoiding going and getting help for financial reasons, there is also help for you out there. Very, very good. Now, how can the community get involved with the organization?
We do have fundraisers. We have a big fundraiser next month, April 25th and 26th. We are producing Eve Ensler's The Vagina Monologues, and that's a women's empowerment play, really. It's a series of monologues that were written by the playwright. She interviewed, gosh, I want to say over 200 women of all ages, all over the world, to get their take on what it's like to identify as a woman, what it's like to live in this body. So it's really an empowering production, and we're looking forward to it. I have a great group of women who are in the cast, so that's going to be a good time. But we also have volunteer counselor advocates. Like I said, the 24-hour hotline, there are only 6 of us that are staffed for SARC, so we could not run it if we didn't have the volunteers that we have. And we do offer a free training twice a year. It's about 30 hours of training, and it's topics that are mandated by the New York State Department of Health. So we offer that to people who meet the requirements. Volunteers need to be at least 18. They need to have a phone and access to a vehicle, and they need to be willing to go out to the hospitals to help people who are in crisis, or do some phone counseling. They don't do any one-on-one counseling. Our primary counselors do that. But the volunteers are, they're invaluable. We could not run this program if we didn't have them. So that's definitely an option for somebody. It takes a certain kind of person to do that sort of volunteer work, but it's amazing.
Well worth it, and you help out someone that needs it the most. And now, is there a website? If somebody wants to get basic information, where can they go?
Our Facebook page is actually the best place to go. It's SARC ST, so it would be the Sexual Assault Resource Center of the Southern Tier, but SARC-ST is the best place.
Perfect.
So.
All right. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining me. And then thank you, everybody else, for joining me on this Sunday. Hope you learned a little bit. If you need help, please go to them and get it. Stay tuned now to take a look at what's coming up this week, and I will see you next Sunday.